We've been lied to. Pop culture wants you to think Thor is a golden-haired, noble prince who solves cosmic crises with a brooding stare and a perfect jawline. But the original Norse records tell a much different story. The actual Thor? He was a red-headed, beer-guzzling chaos magnet with the intellectual capacity of a wet rock. He didn't just save the world. He stumbled through it, getting humiliated by elderly women, hiding in the thumbs of gloves, and, at one point, putting on a wedding dress because he lost his only weapon while he was snoring. If you think Thor was a hero, you're only half right. He was mostly a walking, lightning-charged disaster. Stick around because we're diving into the trashy side of the gods, and trust me, it's weirder than the movies. Thor's resume took its first major hit during a road trip to Utgard, the land of giants. After hiking through a forest, Thor and his crew found what they thought was a massive, oddly shaped hall. They slept in a side room, trembling because the building kept shaking. The next morning, they realized the building wasn't a hall, it was the discarded glove of a giant named Skrymir. And that side room they spent the night in? That was just the thumb. It gets worse. Skrymir mocked Thor as small fry and handed him a food bag that the strongest god couldn't even untie because the giant had fastened it with iron wires. Imagine being a god of war and getting defeated by a double knot. Inside the stronghold of Utgard-Loki, Thor was challenged to 3 simple tasks to prove his worth. This is where the disaster reaches peak levels. First, the drinking horn. Thor took 3 massive gulps and barely lowered the liquid. Why? Because the horn was secretly connected to the ocean. He was trying to drink the Atlantic and ended up creating the first tides. Second, lifting a cat. Thor strained until he managed to lift 1 paw. The giants laughed their heads off. Turns out the cat was actually Jormungandr, the Midgard serpent that circles the entire planet. Finally, wrestling a grandma. This is the peak humiliation. Thor got pinned to the ground by a frail nursemaid named Ellie. The catch? Ellie was the personification of old age. And newsflash, nobody beats aging. Not even the guy with the magic belt. Most modern retellings cut these stories because they make the gods look embarrassingly fallible. If you're finding value in this exploration of divine incompetence, the subscribe button is your portal to the rest of the 9 worlds. Comment below. Which of Thor's failures would have broken your ego first? Perhaps his greatest failure was the time he woke up and realized he'd lost Mjolnir. It had been stolen by a giant king named Thrym, who demanded the goddess Freya in exchange for its return. Freya refused to be blackmailed into matrimony, so the gods concocted a scandalously lewd plan. Thor had to cross-dress. They put him in a gown, a veil, and Freya's famous necklace. Loki came along as his bridesmaid to do the talking. At the wedding feast, Thor almost blew his cover by eating an entire ox, 8 salmon, and drinking 3 barrels of mead. When Thrym lifted the veil for a kiss and saw Thor's blazing eyes of fury, Loki had to lie and say the bride hadn't slept for 8 nights because she was so excited. Thor eventually got the hammer back and slaughtered everyone, but his dignity was the real casualty that night. Finally, let's talk about the time Thor lost a flyting, which is basically a Viking rap battle. He met a ferryman named Harbard, who was actually his father, Odin, in disguise. Harbard called Thor a trouserless peasant and mocked him for hiding in the giant's glove. Thor, who has the social skills of a tectonic plate, couldn't think of a single comeback. He just stood there boasting about killing giants while Harbard told him his wife was cheating on him. This theme of brute force failing against cunning also shows up in his fishing trip for the Midgard serpent. Thor used an ox's head as bait and almost caused a global earthquake. But his giant companion Hymir got scared and cut the line, letting the serpent escape. Thor was so mad he punched the giant overboard, proving that when he can't win, he just settles for a psychotic rampage. Thor was a disaster, but that's actually why the Vikings loved him. He wasn't an untouchable icon. He was a bumbling, hot-tempered protector who failed constantly, but always kept fighting. His fallibility made him the god of the common people, the farmers, and the thralls, who knew what it was like to have a bad day. If you enjoyed watching a god get dunked on by a ferryman and an elderly nursemaid, keep an eye out for our next video on how Loki literally gave birth to an 8-legged horse. We'll see you in the next mythological disaster. Don't forget to like and subscribe.